Hey guys, this is part 2 of my Duelist Alliance preview, going over the rest of the cards that are coming in this pack. For this part, it's going to be mostly spell and traps, some of the TCG exclusive stuff, and some of the more extra deck heavy stuff, but still a lot of really interesting cards to go through, and I'm going to get right into it. So the Burning Abyss archetype is being added to the TCG. The monsters that are being added, there's not too much to say about them. They're pretty much all about special summoning. You can only have Burning Abyss monsters out. You're using their special summon effects when you don't have spell or traps, so that's kind of an interesting thing. You won't be setting as much when you're using Burning Abyss, and you just want to bring them out and just, XYZ with them and make plays with them. They're basically a swarming archetype. And then another anti-pendulum card coming, Doomstar Magician, where you can, it's basically a 1-for-1, that you can discard one card and destroy a pendulum, but you also gain a card additionally from it. So it's kind of like a +1 actually, because of the fact that, you're using that destruction. So this will be a really nice counter card for pendulum heavy decks. And then Felice, another light sworn monster that's being added, kind of like Wolf, it special summons itself. Also really cool that it can destroy things, so kind of like Raikou. It's a few different cards in one, and another 4-star tuner, which is another really powerful thing. Now in addition to Raiden, they can bring out Michael really easily. And then Fishborg Doctor, just another monster for Fishborgs, allowing them more special summoning. And then Gaia, the Midnight Sun, the Polar Knight, just light and dark versions of this card that allow you to kind of search out things when you tribute monsters. Kind of an interesting thing. This will allow you to search out certain cards depending on your deck type. And in a lighter dark, Chaos deck or something like that, it might be pretty useful. And the UA archetype is also being added, just 2 monsters to talk about. Basically, their idea is to special summon, use their effects, and kind of tag out, kind of like Gladiator Beast, but kind of in a different way. They want to special summon to activate effects, and that'll also get kind of pumped up by their field card. And then we have Chaos Seed, just kind of a thing for light and dark warriors that you can recycle from the Banish Zone. So again, another support card for Chaos, which is interesting. So then Curse of the Shadow Prison, I haven't really seen too many Shaddoll decks run this, but this is the field card for them. Basically they're allowed to gain attack and fuse with the opponent's monsters, which can be powerful, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a big card for them. I'm still kind of seeing whether they're going to use this. The attack boost is not important for Shaddolls. They focus on just blowing up things and beating special summons, so I don't think that will be a big part of it. But the fact that you can use your opponent's monsters is pretty cool, but they are getting another card that eventually will be able to do that. Dracocension, an interesting card that just allows dragon monsters to turn into worms, so if you run a deck that runs dragons and worms, you can kind of bring that out. It'll be interesting if we see dragons in addition to Yang Zing and some of the things they're trying to do. Feast of the Wild, so this is just a card to special summon level 5 warriors, which will be really useful for UAs, so I think that will be a perfect card for them. And then Hippo Carnival, just kind of like a scapegoat that makes it so your opponent has to focus on these monsters. So it's more of a focused stall card where your opponent has to attack these. So it can be interesting, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a big card for people to use. Hymn of Light, that's the ritual card that I talked about for Saphira. The really interesting part about this ritual card is that you can banish it from the graveyard and not have your rituals be destroyed, which is really nice. So you might see it in other decks, but you're still going to need to run Saphira for it, so that's kind of interesting. Magical Spring, another really weird card. It's more of like a counter card against decks that run a lot of face-up spell and traps, so depending on what that is, depending on whether they run pendulums and all this other stuff, this could be a really useful card. And if your opponent runs a lot more back row than you, there's some really interesting draw power you can gain from this. And then we have Pop-Up. So this one is just kind of a weird card. When your opponent has a field card, you can activate a field card from your deck. So it can be nice as a surprise, but I'm not sure how big of a deal it will be to use. And then Satellarknight Skybridge. This one's an interesting, just kind of exchanging Stellarknights on the field, which is really good because it's a way to search out and get what you need. So that can be pretty cool. And then the fusion card for Shaddolls. The big thing about this is that if your opponent has special summon monsters from the extra deck, you can use the monsters from your deck to fuse, which is very powerful to set up whatever you need for your Shaddolls. And then equip card for Satellarknights. This one's just kind of cool that you can keep your Satellarknights from being affected by card effects, which can be really powerful. I'm not sure how big of a deal it will be, but 500 attack and defense is pretty nice considering that protection effect. Another thing for this card is that you can't control other monsters. That's a big deal for a lot of the support cards that they're adding. They're kind of trying to make archetypes more specific and keep people running the cards in that archetype, which I think is pretty cool, but it is also limiting some of the creativity. And then Monarchs Stormforth. So basically a Monarch support card, but it can be used for any type of tribute deck. It's kind of like a soul charge for tribute monsters, which is really, really nice that you're able to activate this, especially because it's a quick spell, so you can make some really surprising plays on your opponent. And then UA Stadium, just the card for UAs, allowing them to gain some advantage from when they're normal summoned. In the special summons, they all gain attack, which is kind of the idea of their deck in general, to switch out in special summons, so that can give them a lot of big attack force at once. And then the Yang Zing Path, just a recycle card for Yang Zings, which is really nice, giving them some draw power. Very easy to get them in the graveyard to begin with, so I can see that being very useful. Yang Zing Prana, basically because of the effects of all the Yang Zings, you can use this card to activate a lot of really powerful effects. Kind of runs in the way of Path, but I could still see them both being pretty useful down the line. And then there's a couple Battleguard support cards, but they're not really for Battleguards, they're for Warriors. Battleguard Howling seems really good, that you can just bounce your opponent's monsters when your Warriors get attacked and do damage on top of it, so that's pretty powerful. Battleguard Rage is also an interesting one, that you can bounce cards instead. Could be nice when you're fighting against a graveyard base deck, which can be really nice. Chain Dispel. Just kind of a chain destruction for spell or traps, which could be really useful if you're going against a deck that really focuses on a specific spell or trap. You can just get rid of all of them, which is really nice for some of those powerful cards that decks rely on. And then we have Exchange of Night and Day. Again, just one of these light warrior or dark warrior support cards that seems to be a prevalent support that they want to add to, just allowing them to recycle and send things, which is pretty good, especially with how Chaos works. Nice to be able to send things to the graveyard. Face Off, so we're getting a counter card for those cards that activate during the damage step. So if you hate Boojins or Blackwings or things like that, this could be a really nice card for that. And Pendulum Back, just a support card for a deck that uses a lot of pendulums. You can recycle things, so you'll be able to use them for pendulum summoning, which is really, really good. Shaddoll Core, another trap monster being added. Very important that it's level 9, so keep that in mind for level 9 XYZs or other things you want to do. But it's a very nice card for Shaddolls because they can make their fusions really easily, especially the ones that, focus on a certain attribute, because this can just substitute itself. And then Sinister Shadow Games, so just a Foolish Burial for Shaddolls, and also flips their Shaddolls face up. Just a really good card for Shaddolls, and you're going to get to see this run in probably all Shaddoll decks. And then Time Space Trap Hole, just kind of a counter card for special summons, but you lose life points for it. So there might be better things for special summons. But again, Solemn Warning costs 2,000 life points. This can counter a lot of special summons, and it'll only cost 1,000. You can also, counter very specific, huge amounts of special summons, which could be really powerful. And then another Stellarknight support card. This one's an interesting one. You could distribute a Stellarknight to negate pretty much anything, and then you can draw a card. So very nice that you can draw a card, because a lot of these counter traps that are specific to deck types don't get run very much. But because you can draw an additional card to make up for the fact that you use this, it might be somewhat decent, and you can use a lot of Stellarknight things from the fact that they're in the graveyard. So I'm still kind of debating this card. I'm curious if it'll be run, because you have to tribute a monster, obviously. And then Stellarnova Wave, just giving Tellarknights a way to special summon very continuously. Very cool that you can do it during your opponent's battle phase. I think that's a really neat. So I definitely think this will be run just because of that, continuous special summoning power. That 6, just a weird card to counter dice decks. If you're playing against a deck that uses a dice, you can use this card to counter them pretty easily. The Traveler and the Burning Abyss, just allowing them to resummon those Burning Abyss cards, which will be really, really nice for that deck. Yang Zing Creation, kind of similarly to what I was just talking about. You can allow the Yang Zings to keep getting special summoned, but a big thing about them is that they already special summon when they get destroyed, so this will make synchro plays really, really easy with the Yang Zing. And the Yang Zing Unleashed, just forcing your opponent to attack, which is big for Yang Zings to search out whatever you need as setting up the field, and also very nice that you can just quick synchro summon with this, which will be very powerful when you want to make your certain plays. So the other extra deck cards that are coming, Panzer Dragon, this card is going to be really good actually if you run Instant Fusion, because if you run a machine-based deck, once this gets destroyed by Instant Fusion, it'll destroy a card on the field. So in case of, if you're not making the plays you want to make, you could still use Instant Fusion, get a destruction, and you'll have that in the graveyard to make additional plays. So I can see a lot of decks wanting to run this. Again, just a perfect match for Instant Fusion. And then Baxia, just the Yang Zing boss. Very powerful that you can shuffle things into the deck. That's always a very powerful effect that you can use. And also very nice that you can destroy and special summon, because Yang Zings are going to get a huge advantage off of this card. It has to be at 2300 attack because its effects are very powerful. You also have to consider the bonuses it's going to get, from the other Yang Zing, like the one that can give it plus 500 and stuff like that. So it can become a very powerful card. And then Cloud Castle, nice that they're adding another level 9. This is basically like a level 9 support synchro. Really interesting, 3000 defense, obviously it has no attack, but this will really keep your opponent from attacking with lower level monsters. It won't do anything to XYZs, that's kind of an issue, but if you are focused on a level 9 deck, you can run this. I'm trying to think of the combination for it, but it's going to be weird. Maybe if you summon multiple versions of this to make 9-star XYZs. I think there's a few things you could do, but I'm still kind of thinking about it. Another 5-star that's being added, Samsara Dragon. So this card is basically like a Monster Reborn that you're using for Synchro. So an interesting thing, you could just stall with it on the field. Your opponent's going to have to deal with it eventually, or you can just set it up to special summon from the graveyard. So really nice that you have another way to get things from the graveyard using an actual monster, which you don't get to see very often. And then the other XYZs that are being added, Castel. So Castel is a pretty interesting one. It's kind of like Maze Stroke that it can switch things, but it also has an additional effect that it could shuffle something into the deck. So this might be more powerful than Maze Stroke actually. This will be a really interesting card that I think people will definitely consider running. And then the boss of the Burning Abyss, Dante. The Burning Abyss archetype is just based on Dante's Inferno, so that's why the boss is actually Dante. So the idea behind this card is just to send things to the graveyard and have it gain attack. Kind of an interesting card because it defends itself at the end. Can be nice because you're sending things to the graveyard, so Burning Abyss will get some advantage from that. I would like to see something a bit stronger than this, personally, to make the archetype work, but hopefully we'll see more down the line. And then there's another level 6 XYZ being added. This one's kind of interesting. It gets bonuses from the dark monsters in the graveyard. It could be really nice for a deck that wants to send a lot of things to the graveyard. But I don't think its attack and defense is, going to get to anywhere very relevant. I think it's just a way to mill your deck really, really quickly. So depending on what your deck is trying to do, that could be pretty interesting. And then the boss for Stellarknights, Delteros. So this one's a pretty powerful one. Keep in mind it's a generic, so other people are going to be able to use its effects, which are pretty powerful. Obviously, it's aimed at the Stellarknights because you can keep your normal and special summons from, getting destroyed or getting negated or things like that. But just very nice that you could just destroy a card on the field. So for a triple rank 4 XYZ like this, it'll be very nice to have for any deck that can swarm just because you're able to destroy things. Obviously, it'll be a much more powerful deck for Stellarknights, protecting those summons and allowing itself to destroy things. And then in addition, it'll be able to special summon a Stellarknight. So I could see really big plays for this card just in general, but obviously we'll see it in the Stellarknight decks. So those are all the cards that are being added in the Duelist Alliance pack. If you haven't seen, I already did part 1 of it. A lot of really interesting cards. Not too many specific archetype, outside cards for other archetypes. Hopefully we'll see more of that coming, but I think they just tried to make a really good initial setup for a lot of different archetypes. They added a lot in this deck, so they needed to add a lot of support to make them work, and a lot of additional bosses and spells and traps and all that stuff. But I definitely want to hear from you guys. Let me know what cards you're excited about, what archetypes you're excited about, and what you want to run and what you're going to put in your deck. I am already thinking about all these decks in my head and what I'm going to try to build. But I'm very excited about it, and I hope you guys are too. But that's about it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.